Hello, welcome to the show. Welcome to Not Just Nintendo, a video game podcast where we talk about Nintendo. But it's not just Nintendo here at Not Just Nintendo, as we talk about other video games as well. And I think today is going to be an episode focused a lot on other companies, because I beat a video game. And I guess I should hold off real quick, because I've got to say, this is episode 9, folks. Next episode is going to be the double digits, and that is very exciting. I don't know why, but it is, right? I mean, in a weird way, it feels like you're really rolling once you get to 10 episodes on something, It's like, all right, now we're in full force. I mean, I don't know if I would say this is quite in full force, but I did just say that, so maybe I would say that. Who knows? Anyways, the point is, double digits, right? That's going to be fun. And after that, we'll have to get to triple digits, I don't know if that'll ever happen, but, we can dream, right? So anyways, my point is, hello, everybody. I am clearly out of it. So last week I was quite sick, and the episode was quite a bit shorter because I could not record that full hour and a half. I guess I could have, if I had started it a day earlier, I could have broken it up a little better, but I just, I was so sick. So anyways, that's okay though. It was a shorter episode, and now, today, I plan to do a normal length, or maybe even longer, we'll see. But I'm back, I'm feeling quite a bit better. I'm still a little bit congested. I don't know if you can hear it or not. So I'm sneezing a little bit, stuffily a little bit, still, even though this has been going on for like almost 2 weeks now. I'm still feeling it a little bit. I must have had something really bad, but that's all right. I at least feel physically better. So hopefully this episode can be normal length and stuff. We'll see. I don't know. I yap for an hour and a half every day, so I think I can do it on the show today. So I'm actually here on Wednesday morning. Usually I record these episodes on Monday or on Tuesday, occasionally on Sunday if I'm feeling preemptive. But today I'm recording it on Wednesday morning. Nothing like last minute, right? But the difference is that I have no school today. We're on Easter break. A break for Easter, that's fun, right? My Easter break actually started 2 days early because I was sick, so I just stayed home. And honestly, as soon as I started staying home on the Thursday before break, there was Thursday and Friday that we were supposed to go to school. I didn't. As soon as I stayed home that Thursday and went to the doctor, I started feeling quite a bit better. So I just played Persona. But it's all right. We're good now. Anyways, speaking of Persona, I might have beat it. Maybe not. Maybe I beat. I beat a little indie game. It was like a little hour-long indie game. It was all right. Maybe it'll get a sequel. No, I'm kidding. I beat Persona 3 Reload. I've been talking about Persona 3 for quite some time, and we're definitely gonna be talking about that today. I beat it yesterday, afternoon. I was expecting to wait. Well, I did wake up early. I woke up early and I was like, I'm gonna knock this out this morning, right? I figured I was gonna beat it by noon, probably. And no, I I didn't beat it till 3 o'clock. So I did not leave my room yesterday from 5 a.m. to 3 p.m. because I was just blasting through. Actually, it's more like 3:30. I was blasting through the end of Persona 3 Reload, and I've got to say, that game is very long, but it's very good. I mean, honestly, that game is phenomenal. So yesterday I finished Persona 3 Reload, and then I was gonna do the podcast, but I got into a little kick there. So, I play games nowadays at my desk on this little bitty TV that's more of a monitor, but it is technically a TV. I play all my games on that nowadays. Not everything's connected to that, but the stuff I play is. And so, it's a bit of a different experience, being. I mean, it's kind of nice and on some level being there by my computer so I can look stuff up and not have to do it on my phone because I don't really like using my phone for most things. So that's nice on some level, but it's also, you're sacrificing some visual fidelity and some visual stuff. I mean, not being in front of a big screen and being in front of a, 15-year-old TV, it's maybe not the best. But I don't really care too much about visuals anyway, so it's not a big deal. At the end of the day, games that look better still look better, even if they don't look as good as they could, right? And I don't think it really matters too much. And the reason that I've been playing on this little TV, I've been playing on this TV since October, The reason I've done that is because I was doing the YouTube videos where I was doing Let's Plays and stuff. I actually plan to do some Let's Plays again soon. But anyways, I was doing Let's Plays and stuff, so once I got the capture card, I moved everything over here so that it would be much easier to just connect the capture card to the computer instead of like trying to run a cord across my room. Even still, that wouldn't work because I wouldn't be able to record the audio, and so maybe it was technically possible with some weird workarounds, but there was no reason to worry about that, so I instead just moved everything over here. Because my normal TV setup that I'd been playing games on before for years is on the other side of my room. So that was kind of where I was at. It was kind of a weird situation. But I've been playing stuff over here on the desk for a while, and over here I had the PS5 and the Switch, which I played quite a bit, and then I had the Wii U, which I went through spells where I played the Wii U a lot. Specifically, I'd play Wii games on it most of the time, but I'd play Wii U games every now and then as well. I had that over here, which of course, there's something weird about playing the Wii U on in like a close quarters, especially playing a Wii game, right? The Wii U, it's it's not the easiest thing to be, to have at your desk because, the cords, like, have you seen the power cord for the Wii U recently? Like, that thing, I mean, I guess it's the same size it's always been, but I guess it's just kind of weird seeing it again, after these years. Like, goodness gracious, that Wii U power cord is bigger than you remember. It's got a giant brick halfway in the middle. And of course, that's what a lot of consoles are, but the Wii U is one of the bigger ones. I would say the original Xbox probably has the biggest power brick I've seen, and then the 360's got the second largest probably. But the Wii U is no joke with its power brick. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I should do a little, a ranking of all video game consoles and their power bricks. I mean, nowadays you don't have to worry about it quite as much. The Switch does have a brick at the very end, but it's nothing too crazy or large or anything. And then the PS5 and the Series X, they don't have anything. They just have, your normal, you know, opens up into the two prongs. There's like no extra bulk there at the end because they're just so much more efficient on power and stuff. But anyways, that's a whole side tangent. But the point is, the Wii U, the power cord's bulky, and so you can't like fit it between the desk and the wall. You have to put it in the little notch in the back, because that's the only way it'll fit. And so it's a little strange as well. The sensor bar is a problem if you're trying to play Wii games. You can't be, a foot from the sensor bar because it won't work. So I have to push my chair way back. I don't know. I did some live streams playing Mario Galaxy and Mario Galaxy 2 on the Wii, like back in November and December and stuff. And it was always a bit of a mess because I had to push back like 6 feet from my computer. Maybe not quite. Well, yeah, probably just about 6 feet from the screen. And of course, I'm here trying to read chat, and so I'm like pushed back and I'm like hunched forward, like, oh, what's that say? And of course, I'm like half blind and I wear glasses. So, anyways, it was a bit of a mess. And you still have some problems even from like 5 or 6 feet away with the Wii U. I mean, with the sensor bar. I mean, like the ideal distance is probably that regular like I would say 6 to 8 feet, probably. Like how you normally sit from a TV, probably. Um, I guess it just depends on where you're sitting, right? But like that's probably the ideal distance. I think the further away you get, it usually tends to work better. But if you're right there in front of it, it's not going to work. If you're three or 4 feet away, maybe a little bit. If you're 6 feet, you're pushing it. But beyond that, it's usually fine. Um, and so that was weird having the Wii U here, and it was just another thing as well, causing clutter. I mean, the PS5 I keep under the desk because there's absolutely no way that thing is going to fit anywhere around here. The thing's too big. So I keep it on the floor I put a pillowcase down, and it's resting on the pillowcase so it's not like right on the floor because I don't want it to get like messed up or anything. But I'm always worried I'm going to like kick it over or something. Maybe I should just lay it down flat. I don't know. But anyways, and so it's on the floor. And then the Switch is like kind of in the way at all times. Like I keep it right there in front of my main monitor, and it's just always in the way. The Wii U I had in front of the little TV, and so it was like resting on the base of the TV where I actually play the games. And it was also kind of in the way. So it's nice to declutter that a little bit. I moved the Wii U, I moved the PS3 as well, was down there by the PS5. I moved both of those back over to my TVs, which I haven't played games over there. I mean, I guess the last time I played a game over there was on Christmas Day, because I got the PS5, I tried to hook it up over here to my little TV, and it wouldn't work. And I was like, why is that? Like, what's going on? And so then I moved it back to the other TV and it worked fine. And turns out what it was is that I was putting it through the capture card, because that's the only reason I play the games over here anyways, to put stuff through the capture card so I can capture footage if I need to. And then I just didn't want to move stuff away if I didn't need to capture footage. And it wouldn't work through the capture card because there's a setting on the PS5 specifically that you have to turn off to have it work through the capture card. So I had to play it over there on the big TV, which I will say, it is kind of fun getting a new, really powerful console and then playing it on a larger screen first. Like, it's kind of a neat experience. But, anyways, I played all of Astro's Playroom over there, a little bit of Spider-Man 1, and then I moved it back over here. And so that's the last time I've played anything on the big screen until last night. And I guess that's where my story was going. I got off a little side tangent here. But, I've been listening to more podcasts and stuff, and everybody kind of gets off on a weird topic right at the start. So I think it's kind of a fun thing to do. But yes, yesterday, after I beat Persona 3 Reload, I worked on my room a little bit. My big TV, since I haven't been playing games over there, stuff has just accumulated in front of it. And so I'll put, like, a box of controllers and a box of cords, and of course the cords aren't sorted and all this, and it just sits there in front of the TV, and so I like could not get to it. And so yesterday when I went to move the Wii U, is what I was moving first, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a mess. And I looked behind the TV and it was like a cable city. I mean, it was terrible, right? It was a cable mess. So I spent last night and this morning, and I cleaned out, I completely unplugged every console that was plugged in over there. So I unplugged, like, the Master System, the Genesis, the Dreamcast, the Saturn, the GameCube, PS1, PS2's downstairs, so that's not, my dad's playing that. PS3, actually PS3 wasn't over there just yet, but then 360, Series X, and the Wii. I had to move all that stuff out of the way. Oh, and I had the Atari 2600 Junior there as well. I did not plug that one back in. I'm not going to play that. But anyways, and so I had to unplug all of those, move them out of the way. I had to unplug the TV as well, and then replug everything back in a new way so that it was a bit less of a mess. And then put everything back on the shelf, and I think it actually turned out very well, and things are a little bit more orderly. And then I went through all the cords and stuff, and I wrapped them up, and I organized them. I have all of my assorted USB cords in one tote. I have all of my power cords, like AC adapters and things, in one tote. And then I have all of the hookups, like AV and RF and coax and whatever else, the UHF or whatever that's called, the teeth, all of those, and HDMI, although admittedly I'm using almost all of my HDMI cords. Like, I do not have many extras of those, but it's weird. I just have so many AV cords that I have extras of those, even though I use a lot. But anyways, and I've got all of the AV devices connected to an 8-way splitter, because you just cannot find a TV anymore that has more than one AV port. So you just have to, use the one. It's actually, we got my dad a TV, like, couple years ago, I want to say, like maybe a year and a half ago. Yeah, probably like a year and a half ago. And we went to Walmart to like find a TV. And of course, a lot of the reason why we wanted to get him a TV was so we could play old games and stuff in the basement, because that's where he hangs out. Anyways, the point is, when we went to Walmart, all of the TVs like didn't have AV hookups. They all were just like HDMI. So we found the one TV in Walmart that was like pretty big and a smart TV that also had an AV hookup, and it also had an antenna hookup. So you could, and it was obviously antenna and coax in one port. So it had all that stuff, and I was like, all right, great. And so that was like the one there weren't a whole lot of options because nothing had an AV port. I mean, you can get AV to HDMI adapters, right? And I do have one somewhere, but I don't know. Usually the picture quality is sacrificed, and you can only do it with one thing. You have to go buy an adapter for everything, and some of those things are expensive. So, there just wasn't much point. We just got one with an AV port. But for me, I have so many consoles up here that, the one AV port is just not cutting it. And so what I have is I have an 8-way splitter where you plug into the TV the splitter. It has an use an AV to AV cord, and you plug it into the TV. And then there's 8 other slots there that you plug in a console each, and then you can split it. You can hit one. There's like these buttons, and they're really satisfying to click. They like press in, and they like make a clicky sound. But there's 8 buttons, and you like can switch it from there. And so I have a little, piece of paper on the wall there, and it like tells me where every console is. So I've got like, you know, port 1 is PlayStation 1, and port 2 is like GameCube, and all this stuff that half of it I probably won't play very much, but whatever. I did actually at one point when I had more things hooked up, because like I don't have everything hooked up anymore, because I'm not going to play everything. But when I used to have more stuff hooked up, I would actually have to I had another splitter. I had a 3-way splitter that I would plug into slot 8. And so for certain consoles, I think it was like the Famicom and the Intellivision, maybe there was another one, I don't know, that were on there. And so what I'd have to do is I'd have to hit slot 8, and then use this one. The other one had like a little notch, like you would slide it between 1, 2, and 3. And so I might have to go on like 8.1 or 8.2 or 8.3. And so I had like 11 or 10 or 11 different consoles hooked up to the same AV slot, and it was a bit of a mess, but it was kind of fun on some level. So, and I could have more things hooked up. But anyway, so that's what I've been up to the last couple days. Yeah, and I had been talking a couple episodes ago about how I was filing my collection. I was putting everything in a Google Sheets document. I had done all my Nintendo games, Atari games, Sega games, Intellivision games, Magnavox games. I had done all that stuff, Coleco games, but I hadn't done PlayStation or Xbox yet, and so I still haven't done those. I don't know where I was going with this story. I still haven't done those, but now that everything's moved out of the way and things are a little bit more accessible in my room as a whole, I'm going to do those probably over the next couple days over my break. So I'm thinking next episode I'll have my whole collection filed in a Google Sheets document, and I'll have my final tally and tell you how many games I have, which is exciting. I might be over 600 now, I don't know. So maybe not. Maybe I'm still in 500s, but anyways, so that's going to be exciting. All right, so we're going to take a little bit of a music break, and then I will be talking about Persona 3 Reload, because it's an amazing game, and I'm probably going to talk about it for like an hour. So, all right, see you then. And we're back. Hello, everyone. Let's talk about Persona 3 Reload. So as I mentioned before, I wrapped this up yesterday on April 15th, and it took me about 79 hours. So it was a real quick game, just blew right through it, right? I started this way back in January. Well, actually, I guess I should back up a little bit. Last year, when I bought a computer, and I got it in September, right? That was when I came back to YouTube and stuff. I got a computer in September, and with it came a month of Game Pass Ultimate, right? And so I tried a number of things on Game Pass Ultimate. I played like Firewatch and Grease and Limbo. Not Limbo, I actually played that before. What else did I play on Game Pass? Unpacking, Donut County. Not a whole lot, honestly. I didn't play as much as I wanted to. I tried a few other things, but really what happened was I picked up Persona 3 Reload. Not picked up, like I didn't buy it because I was playing it on Game Pass. But I started playing Persona 3 Reload, and I got like super hooked on it on Game Pass. I played like 25 hours or something on Game Pass, and I was like, man, this game is amazing, right? And so then I was like, you know what, I should stop playing this, play some other stuff on Game Pass before it runs out, because I only had like 3 months of it. And then I'll just buy it at some point on another platform, or on Xbox or something, right? And so that's what I did. I stopped playing Persona. This was back in like November. I stopped, and I was like, I need to buy this game at some point, right? So then, at Christmas, I got a PS5. So I bought Persona 3 Reload, and I got it on a PS5. And I started it, I think it was like the very end of January, maybe the very beginning of February. I guess I could probably pull up my achievements and tell you the exact date, but it's not important. The point is, over the last couple months, I've been playing Persona, and I am now hooked on the series after one game, because goodness gracious, this is fantastic. It's one of those things. I beat it yesterday, and I was like, man, this has got to be one of the best games I've played this year. And then I went back and I looked at my list of games I played this year. I'm like, well, wait a minute. There's actually a lot of good stuff here. I mean, we got Astro's Playroom. I beat well, technically last year, but we're counting it for this year because it's, since Christmas. I played Astro's Player, which is phenomenal. Played Marvel Spider-Man, phenomenal. Echoes of Wisdom's phenomenal. Miles Morales is phenomenal. Spider-Man 2 is phenomenal. Mario Kart Super Circuit is pretty good. Behind the Frame is alright. Final Fantasy is pretty good. Kirby 64 is pretty good. Metroid Zero Mission's phenomenal. Final Fantasy 2 is pretty good. Metroid Fusion's phenomenal. The Last of Us Part 1 was pretty good. Yeah, I'd say it's pretty good. Super Metroid was pretty good. Once Upon a Jester was alright. Super Mario Brothers, I'm not counting that because I already played it. Donkey Kong 94 was really good. I would even say Donkey Kong 94 might have been phenomenal. And now Persona 3 Reload was phenomenal. So I'm like, okay, this is going to be a very tough year as far as ranking these things at the end of the year. Like, when we get to the end of the year, I'm not going to know where to put things. But I guess we'll just have to figure that out. I'll leave that to myself in December. Um, cut to me in December being like, thanks. No, I'm kidding. But anyways, I'll just have to deal with that then, I suppose. But that's all right. It's fun. It's kind of fun to make the lists and stuff. I've actually thought about making a running list throughout the year and then just keep updating it until the end of the year. But I think I'm just not going to bother with it. Um, I'm also thinking of doing like a list this year, just adding onto the list next year from last year. I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on that. Maybe I could post that somewhere on like a community post or something where I post it, the two lists integrated, but I don't actually make a video. I don't know. We'll see. Um, or what I could do as well is in 5 years I could make like a games of the decade list. A lot of people were doing that last decade, so I could do that. We're halfway through. And it'll just be anything that I've played. That came out in this decade. I could do that. But anyway, we got a long time. We got to worry about that. So let's talk about Persona. Um, I guess actually I should talk a little bit about Persona 3 and Persona as a series and my plans for Persona after this. So now that I've played Persona 3 Reload, right, I have to play. Well, you don't necessarily have to play them in order because the story there's references to other games, but they don't necessarily like the story doesn't pick up where the last one left off. So I don't necessarily need to go play Persona 4 Golden before I play 5 Royal. I could play them in any order. However, I don't want to jump right into another Persona game after just beating an 80-hour one. And so I'm thinking that I'm going to wait for a little while because there's been all sorts of rumors lately that on the Xbox presentation of the Summer Games Fest, which is happening on June 8th, I believe, so like just a couple days after the Switch 2, 3 days to be exact, after that comes out. At that presentation, supposedly they're going to announce a Persona 4 Golden remake, and if they do that, then I will absolutely be buying that. Maybe not day one. The only reason I say not day one is because Persona 3 Reload came out in February of last year, 2024, so a little over a year ago, and like literally by Christmas it was down to like $30, and now it's like 22 or something at Walmart. I'm like, goodness gracious, this game lost all its value like super fast. And it's funny because Persona 3 Reload, I looked it up. I was like, well, surely this game must not be selling very well if they're discounting it so crazily low, right? Well, no, sure enough, it sold pretty great. It sold like 22 million copies or something as of like March, which is insane. I mean, that's like literally, it's not quite in the top 50, but like it's probably in the top 100 games or pretty close at least. Like it's insane sales, 22 million. Uh, but anyways, and it's not even on Switch, Is it on like Steam and stuff? I don't know, maybe. But it's not even on Switch, and you would think that something would have to be on all consoles to sell that well, but no, it does not. So anyways, but yeah, I was like blown away by the sales figures on that. And still they're discounting it like crazy. So I think what probably happened here is they wanted Persona, like they wanted to kind of bring people to Persona because it's a series that, you haven't had quite as many games for in recent times. And so I think they probably wanted to expand the audience a little bit by discounting this game so much. And I don't know, maybe it's just the physical copies. Maybe they overmade the physical copies. I'm not sure. Maybe the digital ones are more expensive. Maybe it's full price digitally. I'm not sure. But at least physically, the game's like super cheap. So I would recommend if you haven't played Persona, you've got to pick up Persona 3 Reload. It's like $20 or something, 25 maybe. At least physically. Again, I do not know digitally. I don't check those storefronts very often because I don't buy games digitally normally. Every now and then, if I buy a little indie game digitally or something, but only if it's on heavy sale. Um, so Or I know for a fact that it's never going to come to physical, or at the very least that it won't come unless like limited run does it. In that case, maybe I will, but even still, I don't tend to. But anyways, Persona 3 Reload, I got the good ending. I guess I'll start with that. I'm gonna do a little bit of not non-spoilers for Persona 3, and then I'll do some spoilers and stuff. I guess I never actually finished my little side tangent there about this Persona 4 Golden remake. If that comes out, if they announce it in June, I would imagine they would either put the game out late in the year, like October area, in which case I would probably wait till Christmas at least, see if they discount it there, Black Friday or Christmas or any of that stuff. Or they could announce it in June and then put it out in that same February slot that Persona 3 came out in. And if that happens, then I'll probably just buy it sometime next year for full price or for close to full price because it probably won't get discounted until Black Friday, and I'm not going to wait that long. So, just depends on when it comes out, but I probably won't pick it up day one, but it'll definitely be on my radar day one. And I definitely need to watch that Xbox presentation. I was probably going to watch it anyway, but now I definitely need to watch that specifically to see if Persona shows up. Um, but anyways, so that's my thing with Persona 4, and then I want to play Persona 5 Royal as well. I could do that before Persona 4, but like I don't want to start a Persona game right away. I don't even have 5 Royal either, so I'd have to buy it. And I don't want to jump right into another one because I just finished one and it was super long. So I want to wait anyway until at least June. And if in June they don't announce if they don't announce the Persona 4 remake in June, then I'll probably buy 5 Royal and play that and just keep waiting on that Persona 4 remake. And if it doesn't come, then I'll just play the original version. That's fine. Or not the original. I won't play the Vita version, but I'll play the console ports, the Xbox and PlayStation. I think it's PS4 and Switch is what it's on. But anyways, so we're just gonna have to see on that. I might play Persona 4 next if it gets remade. Otherwise, it'll probably be Persona 5 next, and then I'll go back to 4. Because you can do that with Persona. It's not you don't need to play them in order. I also want to play Metaphor Refantasio from last year. I don't actually know when that came out last year. I guess I could look it up real quick. But yeah, Metaphor Refantasio came out last year. It was like a Game of the Year nominee. Everybody loved it. October. Okay, so it's pretty late. It's actually a pretty recent game still. It's only 6 months old. Um, Interesting. So, anyways, it does feel like Atlus. Man, my voice is going away. Um, it does feel like Atlus is doing a lot of stuff at the same time lately. I mean, man, sorry. They did Persona 5 Strikers, or maybe that's still coming out. They're doing this Raidu thing, the remake of the Raidu game from PS2 that's coming out on Switch and probably elsewhere. I don't know. And then they did Persona 3 Reload just a year ago, and supposedly they're already doing a Persona 4 remake. So that's crazy. I guess I'm still sick. Sorry. So that's pretty crazy. And they just put out Metaphor Refantasio like last year as well. So it just seems like they're doing like a ridiculous amount of stuff. All this when they're presumably also working on Persona 6, right? And I mean they're probably working on SMT as well. I mean, I don't understand how they manage to work on so many things at the same time and how they have such crazy output. Like it's crazy. They're always putting stuff out. So I'm happy though because I played Persona 3 and I loved it and I want to play more. So well, the more they put out, the better. I'm even thinking of buying Raidu, even though it's not a similar combat system. I'm thinking of buying Raidu just cause, maybe on Switch too, since it's going to be on there. I don't know when it's coming out. I don't know if they actually had an announcement or like a release date for that. I'm looking. In June. All right. What else is happening in June? I mean, the Switch 2. So I'll probably still be playing Mario Kart. I don't know. Maybe I'll buy it. If I do buy it, it probably won't be till later in the year, but I might buy Raidu just, because it's an Atlus game. But actually, though, I don't know. If Persona 4 Golden gets announced, I'm just going to play that instead as my non-Nintendo thing, because I imagine I'll be playing a lot of Switch 2 stuff this year, and it'll be a very Nintendo year in the back half. Although, I mean, every year is a very Nintendo year for me, but you know what I mean. It'll be exceptionally Nintendo considering I just got a PS5 and stuff, so. Anyways, we'll see. I don't know. But yes, Persona 3 Reload, fantastic game. I got the good ending. I think I said that. I got the good ending, and it's like a very long couple cutscenes there at the end of the game, but I don't mind. So for those that don't know, Persona is based off a calendar system, and you're in high school as well, in like all the games, I think. At least in all of the recent ones. I think in all of the games, though. And so you finish the game and you skip a couple months, and then there's like a day where they kind of show like the aftermath, I suppose, like what happened after the game a couple months later, you know. Um, and you could actually there's a day there because you play every day, and basically like on a school day, which is like Monday through Saturday, I guess, in Japan. I don't know. I don't live in Japan, but I assume that they're not just making that up. The only day you get off is Sunday, or if you get like a random holiday or something off. There are holidays and stuff in there. But anyway, you go to school Monday through Saturday, and so after school you can go work on a social link. That's a big thing, at least in Persona 3. I'm not super like knowledgeable on the series, but Persona 3, I guess I'm knowledgeable enough considering I played 80 hours. So a big part of the game, the combat, because it's an RPG, the combat all happens in an area separate from the rest of the game. So most of the game you're like in school, or maybe you have a day off or something, and you can do on a day you have off, you can do one activity where you hang out with someone, I should say, and you get points towards a relationship. But then on school days, when you hang out with them after school, you can like actually um, you can progress your relationship. And when you get to like level 10 with it, there's 10 levels. When you get to level 10, there's like a new persona you can fuse, and you fuse these personas, um, mostly from other personas, um, and you get more powerful. And so you are a character, you have a persona, you actually have multiple personas, and your personas gain powers and abilities, and as you fuse them, you get more powerful and stuff. And I mean, it's pretty basic stuff, right? But there's a whole separate area of the game where you actually do all the combat stuff. The rest of the game takes place like in school. And so a lot of the game you're working on your social links. There's also these stats you have to improve. There's academics, there's courage, there's charm. You have to rank them all up. You start at 1, you have to get to 6. They can get pretty tough. They're varying difficulties. It's easiest to rank up courage, I think, is the easiest one, and then charm, and then academics is the hardest one to rank up. Of course, that's the one I did first. There was a lot of stuff I didn't know in this game. Like, one weird thing that I found a little confusing was that when you're trying to rank up the social links, right? Because you want to do that because, I mean, that's like a lot of the part of the game, a lot of the point of the game, I should say. And at the end, you want to have your social links maxed out, or at least most of them. I didn't have them all because I'm stupid and I wasn't playing the game right until the very end. Man, that was a horrible audio crack. Sorry about that. I need a pop filter. Like, jeez. Anyways, so especially later on in the game, when a lot of your social links get to be higher level, right? You might be at like 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 even, right? Basically, sometimes when you hang out with people, you don't gain points anymore. Or you gain points, but you don't gain a new rank in your relationship, which I guess makes sense, right? I mean, in theory, you would have to hang out with somebody more than 10 times, probably, to become, best friends, I guess. But who knows? I don't know. But anyways, the point is it would basically say when you would talk to somebody, it would come up and be like, you cannot, I don't think your bond will grow any stronger, or something is what it'll say, right? I'm like, oh, I guess I can't hang out with this person yet. I guess I just have to wait until later in the game. But no, you actually can still, and you do get points, you just don't get enough points to rank up. And so you're supposed to be hanging out with people even if you technically can't yet, like you can't gain all of the points yet. And so I had all these social links that I was waiting, like, man, I can't rank this one up yet. I can't rank this one up yet. I didn't realize that I was actually supposed to actively be working on those, even when they said that they couldn't be ranked up. So I just didn't understand how the game worked. I guess it doesn't really. Maybe it tells you. I don't know. Maybe I forgot over the course of 80 hours. Over the course of a couple months that I was playing this. I don't know. Maybe it tells you that. Maybe it doesn't. Who knows? I don't know. But the combat is something where I've heard some people like that don't like the combat in Persona and prefer it in SMT. And I can't really speak to that because I haven't played SMT and I haven't played Metaphor. I think Metaphor is supposed to be more like SMT in combat, but like more like Persona in story. Maybe maybe I'm incorrect on that. But Metaphor is a different thing. But I've heard that a lot of people prefer the combat in SMT because SMT is more focused on combat, where Persona is more focused on the out of combat stuff. And I do agree that there's a lot of not combat stuff in Persona, but the combat stuff that's there, I still think it's a good system. It's like elemental, basically. So you have different types of damage. You have like fire and wind and ice and, I don't know, electric and light and dark. That might be it. I think that's it. But anyways, and so each of your characters might have abilities that focus on one of those forms, but there's also physical attacks that might be a strike attack, a pierce attack, or a bash attack. No, slash. Sorry, slash, strike, and pierce, and those are the three. And so you fight an enemy, and they might be weak to a certain type. And later on in the game, you can like use another character to scan the enemy and find out their weaknesses. And that's something that happens in a lot of games. I mean, for me, my analogous thing is like Paper Mario, Thousand Year Door, right? Like you could scan with Goombella, I think, and you can like find out their health and you can find out their weaknesses and stuff, right? It's that kind of thing. Except you do it with a character who's not actually part of the fighting party. You know, she's like off to the side. But anyways, that's not the point. But yeah, so later on you can find their weaknesses and stuff by scanning, but you still have for the first turn in the fight, you can't know their weaknesses yet, and so you might be trying different things, and so you'll see like, I don't know, an enemy that looks like a snowman, right? For instance. And you'll be like, okay, it must be I have to use fire here. And so oftentimes you can figure it out without having to scan the enemy, right? But they might have multiple weaknesses too. Maybe a snowman is also weak to a strike attack, right? Maybe you knock the snowball over or something, right? And then once you hit a weakness on an enemy, you get another turn. And if you can manage to, if there's multiple enemies on the field, if you can manage to knock them all down, or just the one if there's only one, then you can do an all-out attack where everybody attacks and you do more damage. And it's like an extra, like everybody attacks at the same time and you don't waste any turns, you know? So it's just extra damage if you can manage to hit all the weaknesses. But later on, there might be a thing where you have to hit a fire weakness and a wind weakness and an ice weakness, and, you know, maybe you don't have characters who can hit all those weaknesses, or maybe, you know, you can't do it all in one turn, and if you don't do it all in one turn, then the enemies will stand back up. You know, they don't stay down for long. Unless you hit them with an effect, you can hit them with effects and stuff as well. So there's a lot of, I think there's enough strategy and stuff. It's an interesting combat system. It could also be that I'm, you know, newish to playing RPGs. I mean, I played a lot of Mario RPGs when I was younger, but as far as non-Mario RPGs, I'm newish to RPGs, I would say. I mean, I am new, like, but I've played quite a few at this point, but I don't know. I'm getting into it, you know, slowly. So maybe it's not actually that in depth, but I think it's good enough, at least for someone who hasn't played that much. But maybe I'll go play Persona 4 or 5 or Metaphor, and I'll be like, these are way better. Maybe, I don't know. Or maybe I'll play SMT. I'll be like, this is way better. So I do want to play SMT at some point. SMT is not one that I like want to like play through the whole series. I mean, if I play one and I love it, then I will, right? But it's not something that I specifically want to. I just want to try one and see if it's better or worse than Persona, you know, and see if it's something that I want to still play. So I'm probably going to try 5 Vengeance at some point, unless there's a new one out by the time I get to it, in which case I might try that instead. So my plan with Persona and SMT is basically to play either Persona 4 or Persona 5 decks, depending on if Persona 4 gets announced at this Xbox presentation, right? And then after I'll play the one, and then I'll play the other one, right? And then I'll play Metaphor, and then I'll go try an SMT. I'm not going to worry about Persona 2. Like, there's a couple different Persona 2 games, and I think they probably might remake that at some point. The thing is, there's, like, multiple different Persona 2s. Like, there's a few different versions of the game. Like, they're very different, though. They're all different stories, but they're all Persona 2s. And they're on, like, PS2 and stuff. And they haven't been ported over, and most of them are very expensive. So I'm not going to worry about that stuff. Maybe I will someday. Maybe I won't. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm not currently worried about any of that stuff. So I'm just going to play 3, 4, 5, and then presumably 6 will come out at some point in the next few years. I'll play that. And then I'm going to play Metaphor, Refantasio at some point as well. And then I'll probably go try SMT. I'll probably try 5 Vengeance, unless there's a new one, in which case I'll play that instead. You know, so it's interesting towards the end of Persona. You kind of know when the game's going to end before the game actually ends. Like, you have a date, even. Like, you know, towards the end of the game, that you know that this is the last date, you know, because it's a calendar system, so you're like, this is the last day that this game is going to happen. I'm not going to spoil that day, because you think it's going to go for longer. I don't know. Anyways, so there's a day that you know is the end of the game, and there's obviously going to be a final boss on that day, right? And you don't. I guess they don't outright say that, but there's a lot of allusion to that, and obviously, there's obviously going to be it's an RPG, right? And so, you know, I was like a little bit anxious about the final boss for all the bosses leading up to the final boss throughout the whole game. I had been using a guide basically to tell me which party members I should level up because you have to like actively level them up and stuff by doing battles and stuff. It's an RPG, right? I mean that's like most of them. And so I had to know like which four do I level up. Well, okay, there's like your main guy, and then there's like a bunch of others. You can have three that you can sub out, right? So you've got to keep the one guy, but then the other three can change. And so by the end, you have like I'm not going to say how many people you have, but you have more than the three people, right? So there's people that you have to keep subbed out and subbed in and stuff. And so you have to like choose your party. And so I had to find like I would be looking ahead many days in the game before I knew the boss was, because you find out when those are going to be. And I'd be like, all right, who do I need for this next one? And I'd look up usually an IGN guide. Shout outs to IGN, right? I know they need the help, but anyways. And so I would like be looking at an IGN guide, like, okay, which characters do I bring to this fight? And so I did the same thing with the last fight, and I was really anxious. I was looking all over Reddit, like, how difficult is this fight? Am I gonna have to be way over leveled, or what's the deal? But thankfully, there's a feature. I don't think this was originally in Persona 3 Portable or FES, but there's this feature with online connectivity, right? Because of course that's the age we live in, right? And so basically, you can hit a button on the PS5 at least. It's the touchpad, which I really like. But if you're in certain parts of the game, you can hit the touchpad and you can look at a little menu, and it'll show up and it'll show you all the things that other people did that day. And so it'll show you basically how far people are in the combat, because I told you there's another area of the game where you do combat, and they tell you where they're at in that point, based on a number, and you can compare it to your number. And then there's also everybody's average level, right? So the level of your main guy, it'll be like everybody's average level is 83, right? And then you go check, and your guy is 85, and you're like, okay, well I'm doing pretty good, right? And so at the end of the game, I was looking over, and they're like, yeah, you got to be between 70 and 80, maybe get closer to 80. And so I was here at like 87. I'm like, okay, surely I'm fine, right? Like I'm not gonna have trouble with this boss. But at the same time, I was still worried because I have trouble with like every RPG boss, and I think it's just because I'm not very good at RPGs. I don't grind enough and stuff. But I always have trouble. That's just how I go, right? And I remember like Final Fantasy 1 and Final Fantasy 2 and Thousand Year Door, all these games, I had trouble with the final boss. I did beat them all, but I had a lot of trouble. And so I was so worried that I was going to have all worlds of trouble with this final boss. Now, thankfully, because we live in a modern age, you can change the difficulty and stuff. If you lose the fight, you can redo the fight with a lower difficulty and you can win, right? And I never had to the whole game change the difficulty. I was on normal the whole time, which I was happy about. I was expecting I was going to have to, but it turns out Persona 3 Reload is not a very hard RPG. Like as RPGs go, it's quite easy. It's more focused on the story and stuff. And I mean, there is a difficulty. I think it's like merciless or something they call it, where you can turn it up and you can have. I don't know if you can do that from the start or if you have to play the game through once. I'm not sure. But anyways, there is opportunity for it to be difficult. But if you're just playing on the normal mode, it's quite easy RPG at least. Now, of course, it's also 80 hours long, right? But so I'm not saying it's approachable, but I guess in a way it's approachable. It just depends on how you. It depends on you, right? It really, depending how approachable the game is, it depends more on you than it does on the game. So, anyways, I was very concerned towards the end of the game, and I did like way more grinding than I needed to, because I told you, people were saying you would absolutely destroy the boss on 80, and you wouldn't have any problem, and I got all the way to 87, and sure enough, they were right. The final boss was actually easy enough that I did it in one try, which, some people would be like, oh man, that sucks that you didn't have to grind too much, and, it was too easy. But like, no, for me, I was like, that's great. Like, I'm thrilled that I don't have to worry too much about it, I mean, because I just wanted to finish the game out. I mean, it wasn't that I wanted to be done, that like it was spending too much time, although I guess on some level, right? But really, I also wanted to talk about it on the podcast today, and so I knew I had to finish it so I could do that. And I also just was like, okay, I'm done with this. I've been playing for 80 hours, like 30 of those hours have been in the last week or two. Like I've really blasted through it here at the end. And so I was like, all right, I need to finish this game. So please don't make the final boss too difficult. And thankfully, it's not too difficult. So that was appreciated for sure. So yes. Throughout the game, so I'm usually not a fan of like anime-y art styles. And I would say the same probably goes here. I don't necessarily love the art style always. I would say when you're normally just playing the game, and you can go find footage. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have seen the art style and stuff. When you're normally just playing the game, I don't think it's too egregious, but when there's these cutscenes, some of the cutscenes are in like a that same style. Others of them are in a more anime-y style. I just don't really appreciate the anime art and stuff. I don't get into the anime art and the manga art and like I don't get into that stuff just in general. And so that was part of what put me off from Persona at the first place. But then when I played the game, I'm like, this game is so good. Like, who cares, right? Like, it's just it's a solid game. I mean, and I don't think it's too bad. If you're somebody who stays away from that stuff, I think you'll be fine here. Now, from what I've seen of SMT, it seems to be a little bit more. So I'm like, okay, well, we'll see. I'll probably still play it at some point, but maybe I won't like it. We'll see. But yeah, I was a little concerned about that. It's not really a problem. It's fine. It's whatever. So that's nice. All right, so I'm gonna get into some spoilers about some like social links and some stuff like that. So I will leave a timestamp because I know this game is still fairly recent, at least this version of the game, not the original, but this version of the game. And I think it's good not to spoil, especially story-based things, but just things in general. I usually try to give some warning. I did the same with like Metroid and stuff. So I'm gonna put a timestamp towards the top of the description that kind of sends you until after the spoilers, until I'm probably going to just stop talking about Persona after the spoilers. It'll send you to there. But I'm going to get into some spoilers here. I'm probably going to make a whole YouTube video at some point as well on the channel talking about it. So, I mean, I say that, but I have not made YouTube videos. I've been like slacking like crazy on YouTube videos. I haven't really made a YouTube video that wasn't the podcast since January. And I haven't made one that was a video essay since December. So I really need, I like, it, the year hasn't even started for me on YouTube. I need to get into it. I'm thinking of doing more live streams and stuff too, but we'll see. Anyways, so spoilers and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so let's talk about the final boss because the final boss was very interesting. Well, I guess actually there's a lot you have to talk about before you talk about the final boss, right? So for one, throughout the game, right there at the start, I think it's on the very first day, right in the opening parts of the game, you're a guy, you're a transfer student to this school, and you arrive at this dorm, and you meet this like little boy, and he's like, there's something weird about him. Well, actually, there's something weird about the whole journey. Obviously, I mean, I think most people that are listening to this have probably played the game, right? So you know what I'm talking about. But like, you're just people in coffins, and it's like it's night, and of course that's the dark hour. You learn that later. That there's the hour between, after midnight and between 1 o'clock. There's a whole extra hour there. It's a 25-hour day, and most people are transmogrified, so they're put in coffins and stuff, so they don't witness the dark hour. But you're someone special, you can witness the dark hour, and you've just awakened to this ability. And you get basically to this dorm, and you meet this little kid who makes you sign this contract that says you'll take responsibility for your actions. And basically that lets you later on get into the room, the Velvet Room. I guess the Velvet Room's in other Persona games as well, where you can fuse new personas and stuff. And that stuff continues throughout the game. And so later on, this kid who gets named Pharos, or Pharos, I don't know, however you say it, he's one of the social links you can get. And like social links like that, you max out no matter what you do. They max out by default, right? So there's the social rank with your party. There's 2 different social ranks with your party. That'll max out no matter what you do. And there's like his social link, and there might be another one that I'm forgetting that maxes out regardless. So a few of them max out no matter what you do. As far as the other social links, there's the ones in school, and then there's the ones outside of school during the day, and then there's the ones outside of school at night. And so when there's school breaks and stuff, you can't do the school social links, right? Um, and so you have to focus on those other ones. And I would say the school social links take over like most of the social links. Like most of the social links are at school. And at school, I did not do all the social links. So there's the three of the party members, four of the party members, sorry, and they open up various points throughout the game. I finished the relationships with each of the four party members that you can have a social link with. Um, I finished all of theirs. You do that through school. So I did all of that stuff. And I did the one with the girl from Student Council, the treasurer, Shihiro was her name. I did that one as well. And I finished the one with the exchange student from France, Bebe. That's what they called him. So I finished that one. But I did not finish the art guy. Forgot his name. Hiraga, I think. Something Hiraga. I did not finish his social link. I got pretty close, though. I think I was at 8 or 9 out of 10. And I didn't finish Otagiri's social link either. He's the other student council guy. I think he was only at like 5 or 6. Oh, and actually, I didn't finish Yuko or Kaz as well. Either of the track people. So there was a lot in the school that I missed out on. Because I just didn't realize how social links worked until later on in the game. Like, it wasn't until October when I found out that I was supposed to be still hanging out with these people, even if I wasn't getting a new rank, because I just didn't know how that worked. Outside of school, I did both the ones at night. So there's Tanaka, President Tanaka, and he's like a super rich guy, and he's like got some questionable morals and stuff. I liked his social link a lot. I did that one. He's one where you can only meet him at night after a certain point of the game, and he's only there on like Saturdays and Thursdays. I think occasionally on Tuesdays for some reason. I don't know. It seemed like on some Tuesdays he was there, sometimes he wasn't. But he was always there on Saturday and Thursday. And so you finish up that rank pretty quick because you always get a rank when you hang out with him. And I liked that one. And then there was the guy there's like a nightclub you can go to at night, and there was a guy in there, a monk, and you can hang out with him, and I finished up his social link as well. And then, so I finished all the people at nighttime. But that's the part of the thing with Persona, especially towards the end, or at least Persona 3. I've heard that it's not quite the same with other ones. With Persona 3, at nighttime, you kind of run out of things to do eventually at nighttime. Like all this stuff to do is mainly during the daytime, and you're at school and stuff. So you finish school, and there's a lot of stuff to do at school. And then on the days when you don't have school, there's enough stuff to do outside of school. But then at nighttime, there's a lot less to do. At least later in the game. Early in the game, you can max out your your stats and stuff. You can max out your stacks. You can go, do a few odd, weird things. But later on, it seems like there's less and less stuff to do in the night times towards the end of the game, which is fine. I mean, especially if you want to go grind in Tartarus. I didn't talk about that earlier. That's the place where all the combat happens. It's this tall tower. It's like 264 or something. 264, I think, was the exact number. And basically, to get the good ending, because there's multiple endings. There was at least 2. There might be more than 2. I don't know. But to get the good ending, you have to do all the floors in Tartarus. And I did. I did do all the floors. When I was first starting the game, I was like, oh, man, I bet a lot of people don't do all the floors. But, like, I bet most people probably did. It seemed like you were very much pushed to, and, like, you almost had to. I mean, I guess you could technically not. I feel like you'd almost specifically want to just not bother if you were going to not finish the floors. And there's different themes in Tartarus. And I think my favorite theme in Tartarus, I forgot, like, how to even describe it. It's the one, like, where there's red carpets stuff, was my favorite theme in Tartarus. My least favorite theme in Tartarus was the green one. Well, there's a few green ones. But the one with, like, all the rooms with those extra stairs and stuff, I didn't like that one very much. But basically, you go through, and every month, there's a big boss fight on the full moon of every month. And you figure that out, the party figures that out, like, in, like, June or something. You start the game in April. And like June on the full moon, they figure out that that's when the boss fights always come. But like I figured that out in May or something. Like I was like, oh, it must be on the full moons, because I had been looking at the calendar. There's a calendar in your room where you can see like upcoming things, and I saw that on the nights that we had fought a boss fight, I was like, oh wait, those were full moons. It must be that this is related to the moon. So I figured that out before the people in the game, but whatever. So, um, after those boss fights, a new section of Tartarus will open up, and then you can go explore that further. And so throughout the game, you'll get higher and higher and higher in the floors. Um, and I have heard some criticism from people online, like, oh, it's kind of boring to just scale 260 floors at Tartarus, and like that's all you do in the combat. And like, I don't know, I don't mind, spending a lot of time in on Tartarus and stuff. Like, I think it's a fun thing, like that breaks up the pace of the rest of the game. I mean, I guess actually in a different way, I think Tartarus is actually the thing being broken up. I think the other stuff in the game breaks up the exploration of Tartarus more than the exploration of Tartarus breaks up the other things in the game. Um, because it feels like it'll be feeling like you're flying through days, right? Because each month you can only explore like 30 floors or something. It changes every month. It's not always the same number. But there's like a point where you're blocked off until next month. I guess so that you don't just knock out Tartarus in the first couple months of game time and then just, call it good. Um, so there's like, hard locks where you can't go any further. And once you hit that for the month, which some months are busier than others, there's like school exams and stuff, and those days you can't go to Tartarus. And there's other days you can't go to Tartarus. And there's days that you can go, but you can't bring the full party. There's people that have to stay behind. So, it just depends on the point in the game. So some months it gets a little dicey. You get down and like, okay, there's only 9 days left where I'm uninterrupted, and so I've got to finish this quick. Whereas other times you have the full month. And earlier on in the game, you meet those checkpoints very easily early in the month, but then later on, they take up most of your month. I think probably on purpose. The game is like, okay, we're going to give you less time to do this, to explore this tower. But I always met the checkpoint before the month ended, so I never had to worry about being behind at all. I was never behind. I was always ahead, or at least on time, And so, maybe it's just that I was trying to get things out of the way. I don't know, but that's just how I played. I imagine that's how a lot of people played, but I'm sure there are people out there who didn't. So, anyways, yeah, I think the themes in Tartarus were of varying goodness. Goodness, that's not a word. A varying quality, we'll say. Some of the points in Tartarus, I was like, man, this is kind of boring, but it depended on the theme. Every time you get to a new section, it would get exciting again. So I think they kept it fresh enough. I like fought like every enemy I encountered in Tartarus. You can skip some of them. You can also you'll search the floor and you'll find chests and stuff, but you can find the stairs and then you can just keep going. But instead, I would explore the whole floor before I went up to the next floor to get extra things. And you could definitely not play that way, but I was obviously I was worried that I was gonna get stuck on a boss or something, and so I would do everything. And I never really did get stuck on anything. I think there was maybe one. It wasn't even like a forced boss fight. It was another boss fight that was in Tartarus. It wasn't one of the ones out in the world. It was one in Tartarus. I did get a little bit stuck on one of those. I didn't know what to do. I had to go find an IGN guide. And once I did that, I figured it out pretty quickly. But I think that was the only fight that I actually was struggling with. And then for the final fight, I also used a guide step by step. The final fight is like 14 phases or something. And it changes Arcana. So every enemy in the game and every ally has an Arcana, and the Arcana dictates their weaknesses and stuff. And I never paid attention to that. I just learned their weaknesses based off, like, I'm like, okay, this dude's on fire. It must be he's weak to ice, right? Or wind. And so I just guessed based on that. But I think you can figure it out based on, like, they're a Magician Arcana, or they're a Hanged Man Arcana, or they're a, I don't know, there's all sorts of different ones, or a Fool Arcana, and you can figure out weaknesses based on that, I think. But I didn't figure it out based on that, because I'm sure if I was more familiar with Persona, maybe I would, but I was not, so I was like, okay, whatever. I don't think you need to know that stuff, but basically the last boss changes its Arcana every time you deplete its health, and I will say it doesn't have that much health each time. So, when I first started fighting the final boss, I'm like, man, this thing's dying quick. But it's because every time it reaches 0, or actually it reaches 1 health, and then not like revives, but it gains all its health back and it changes its stats. So now it has different things that it's weak to, different things that it resists, and different moves that it performs as well. And so I thought that was an interesting thing. I actually thought it was a really fun final boss, and I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, and to be honest, it really wasn't that hard, but I was concerned that it was going to get hard, because it did get harder as it went on, right? The 14th phase was much harder than the first phase, but it still wasn't that hard. And so I was concerned that it was going to get hard, and it never did. So, I mean, I guess it got a little bit dicey at the end, but I finished it out, so it wasn't too bad. But yeah, I really love the final fight. I loved all the fights in between. I don't think there was ever like one of the 12 like there's like these 12 big shadows that you've got to fight. All the enemies are called shadows. There's little shadows in Tartarus. You have to fight a lot of them. But then there's big shadows. In the every month you have to fight a big shadow, and sometimes you have to fight multiple in the same month. But anyways, I liked all of those boss fights, and they're all very story based. There's cutscenes, and a lot of story goes on every month on that full moon day, and I always liked that. But I always also liked the boss fights that were inside Tartarus, and you'll see an enemy. It was an interesting thing where you might be on floor 62 and there's a boss fight, right? And there were multiple boss fights in each section of Tartarus, and then at the very top of a section there would be a big boss fight you would have to fight. And so there might be a boss fight in like floor 62, and then you might see that same enemy later on floor 100, and it might be just a common enemy. Whereas on floor 62, it was a boss fight, right? And so they kind of reuse the same enemies, you just get to see them early. And so, like I said, you might get to a floor like 30 or 40 floors later, you're like, oh my gosh, I fought that guy, but now there's 5 of them because you're much more powerful. And so it's an interesting thing, and it really makes you feel like you're gaining power throughout the game. Which of course you are, but I think it really helps add to that, and so that was very interesting. Um, yeah, just all around, really a fun game. I appreciated the story. Like I've talked about it before, I don't usually need story in my games, but RPGs can definitely benefit from stories. You don't necessarily need a great story, I don't think. I mean, there's some Mario RPGs that have like stories that are questionable, and I still like them. Now, to be honest, there are still some fun moments with Mario RPG stories, but a lot of them they're not the best stories technically, and I still enjoy them. So it's not necessarily about having a good story, but a good story can help, at least with an RPG, right? So in this instance, it had a great story. It had, I thought, a great battle system. A lot of the side stuff, social links. I mean, I say side stuff, but that's like almost the focus of the game, the social links and stuff. I appreciated all those. I didn't finish them, but there's like predetermined cutscenes with each of those characters, 10 of them. I guess they're not really, in a way, they're cutscenes. I don't know. It's hard to determine. But you have to, you don't have to do them, but you can do them. And at the end of the game, I think the more you have, the easier the final fight becomes. So it kind of helps you out in that way. So Persona 3 Reload, if you haven't played a Persona game, absolutely would recommend that. You've got to play it. I mean, it's fantastic. You've got to play 4 if they remake that. Although I haven't played 4, so maybe 4 sucks. I don't know. I've heard good things though. So anyways, yes, Persona. It's a new thing. I've been talking about it every month, or every month, every week. I mean, like I think every week since I started the podcast, I've probably talked at least a little bit about Persona 3 Reload and how I'm playing it and stuff. And here we are. Now I've finally finished it, right? So that's fun. Um, and I've got to say, it's definitely gonna be high on my list this year. I mean, right now I'm like, man, that game can't be lower than 5. But at the same time, I look at my list and I'm like, I don't know. I can't even get in 5 now. Like, I don't know. And I'm gonna have other games later in the year as well. So, it'll be in the top 10 though. I think probably. I would guess. So we'll see. I don't know. I guess I can't be speculating what I'll be feeling in 8 months when I make a list. And when I've played 8 months more worth of games. So that's where I'm at with Persona. I finally beat it. And now there's going to be a large void where I'm playing more of smaller games again. And I need to go back to Ocarina of Time. And I'm in the Water Temple on Ocarina of Time. I need to go back to that. And I think I'm going to play some more Wii and Wii U games again. I need to go back to Super Paper Mario. I was playing that back in December. And I stopped because I wanted to finish Brothership instead so I could put it on my list. I was like, I'm either going to finish Super Paper Mario or I'm going to finish Brothership. And I wanted to put them on my end of the year list, and I was like, I'm not going to finish both. So I picked Brothership and sacrificed Super Paper Mario because, I was like, Brothership's the recent game. I think it'd be cooler to have that in the list on the year it came out, And so that's what I did. So, I need to go back to Super Paper Mario, but I also have other Wii stuff that I want to play. I want to play Mad World. That's a Sega, I guess it's like a character action game, like a Bayonetta or like a, I can't remember the name of that one series. Devil May Cry, that's the one. Sorry, I was like, man, what's that series called? It's one of those kind of games, but it's on Wii. I think it's an exclusive as well on Wii. I'm almost positive, and it's a Sega exclusive on Wii, which is a little strange. There weren't a ton of those, and yeah. I want to play that game. I want to play some Wii U stuff that I've bought lately, like Splatoon 1. I want to play the campaign for that. I want to play Star Fox Guard. I'm probably the only person who's ever said that I want to play Star Fox Guard, but there's a few things on Wii U that I want to play. So I'm excited to get into that stuff again. And now that I've got uh, my setup again over at my TV, I can play all of the old consoles and the Series X over at the other TV where I'm not capturing footage. So I'll probably be back to playing old games more again, not just on Switch Online. I'll play them on console and stuff. Maybe I'll play Animal Crossing GameCube again. I don't know. I love that game. Maybe I'll play some PS1 stuff, some PS3 stuff. Maybe I'll go back to the Series X. I know I don't like the Series X, but yeah, I'll definitely be playing a lot of old stuff. I'm also thinking of I have this SNES that's like very busted up. Like the top and the bottom halves were split. There were parts rattling around in there. I was like, man, this thing is not in good shape. But I'm gonna hook it up and see if it works. It probably doesn't, but it might. I don't know. Those things were pretty resilient back then. So I'm gonna hook up this SNES that I found and see if it works. And if it does, I'll test my games. Otherwise, I won't, and I'll just keep a broken one. I had a Retron that broke. It was like a Retron 2 that played Super Nintendo and NES. That thing broke a few years ago. Um, so I need to get a new one of those at some point. I'm probably just going to get the Retron 6 or 5 or whatever. I think it's 5 they're on, actually. But it's the one that plays NES, Super Nintendo, Genesis, Master System, and then Game Boy, Game Boy Color. I think it even plays Game Boy Advance. I'm like, man, this thing plays. Well, like, what doesn't this play, right? I guess 64 is the one it doesn't play. Although there's that analog pocket, right? But they're making a 64 that actually plays the cartridges and stuff. So I'm actually kind of excited about this analog 64 thing. I'm actually thinking I might get one at some point. So we'll see. I don't know. But I do want to get another Hyperkin Retron. And if so, then I'll hook that up and I'll be able to play all my games, all my old cartridge games. I mean, I can already play a lot of them, but it'll be nice to play them on a console like that as well, that has HDMI and stuff, Um, I don't know, does Retrons have HDMI? Maybe they're AV, I don't know. Either way, I mean, better than RF, right? Anyways, so that'll be fun, and I'll get back to playing more of those old games. I hooked up the Genesis again, so I'm gonna test all my Genesis games. This is a funny story. I don't know if I ever told you guys this. So there's a game on Genesis, Tony La Russa Baseball. I think is that what it is, Tony La Russa? I think so. Hold on, I'm checking. It's right above me. Yeah, Tony La Russa Baseball, EA Sports game, right? And it's one of those games that you find, in the dollar bin, maybe not dollar, but like $2 or $3 bin, $4 bin maybe, at a game store. And I guess I bought it years ago, right? Because I was in the mood of buying a lot of old sports games and stuff. Because to find an old Genesis or SNES game for $2 or $3 is like pretty cool, right? Regardless of what the game is, even if it sucks, right? And so I bought Tony La Russa a few years ago, and then at some point I accidentally bought a second copy, so I had a duplicate, which is like not the end of the world, right? So I had two Tony La Russas, right? Well, then just I think just like a month ago, maybe. And this is part of why I started doing this Google Sheets document so I knew what I had. I was out at a store and I found a boxed copy of Tony La Russa Baseball, and it was like $2. I was like, oh my gosh, a boxed Genesis game for $2. That's really cool. And it was a really clean box, and I had the manual in a pristine condition. I was like, this is great. So I brought home Tony La Russa Baseball, and then I found out that I had two other copies of it. And so now I have three copies of Tony La Russa Baseball on Genesis, two of which are loose, one of which is complete. And I also have Tony La Russa 95, which is another game, also a Tony La Russa Baseball, all on Genesis. So apparently I'm like either a crazy EA Sports fan, or I'm a crazy Tony La Russa fan, or I'm a crazy baseball fan. And I'm neither of those. So I'm none of those, actually. So it's a little strange. But anyway, I thought that was an interesting story. So I've got to test all my copies of Tony La Russa. So maybe over the next week I'll be playing all sorts of Tony La Russa baseball, I've also hooked up the Master System again, although I only have two games for the Master System. I've only got Double Dragon and Thunderblade, so it's not much, but Thunderblade's a cool game. I don't know if anybody's played Thunderblade. It was in arcades. Like, originally it was an arcade game. I mean, to be honest, almost everything that came to Master System was originally an arcade game. So obviously everybody knows Double Dragon, right? It's a pretty popular beat 'em up. I would say as beat 'em ups go, it's like Tony. It's not Tony. It's Tony La Russa. Sorry, it's like Double Dragon and Streets of Rage are probably the two biggest ones. And then you got like River City Ransom. You've got the Turtles games from Konami. I would say even something like Ninja Gaiden is pretty well known. Shinobi, right? There's a few of those, but Double Dragon is like likely the most popular beat 'em up. The only competitor is like Streets of Rage or the Turtles game. Turtles in Time maybe as well. So, but yeah. Anyway, so I have Double Dragon on Master System, and I have Thunderblade on Master System. I don't know if anyone's played that game. Thunderblade, well, somebody has. Thunderblade, you're like in a helicopter, and it's like on rails, and you're kind of moving diagonally. It's kind of weird. I guess in a way, it's almost like a Galaxian or a. I guess it's more like Galaga than it is. Well, no, I think it's more like Galaxian than Galaga, actually. I don't know. Anyways, but it's one of those kind of games, and you're shooting out of the helicopter, and there's things shooting you, and it's actually a really fun game, and there's a few levels, and I was thinking of beating it, and then it was too hard, so I was like, all right, whatever. So I'll probably play that again on Master System. Maybe I'll be playing some Thunderblade. They added Super Thunderblade on Switch Online just like a week ago or something, which was totally random. I was like, oh my gosh, they just added. They also added Streets of Rage on there, so I definitely want to try both of those out. I've hardly played anything on the Genesis Switch Online. I was all excited about it, and I never played it. I played Ristar for a little bit. I was gonna play Ristar because I'd heard it was a good game, and I was like, this game sucks. Like the Ristar game on Genesis, I'm like, this is a garbage game. Like Ristar moves too slow, right? And I think the thing is with Ristar is a little star guy. He's like shaped like a star. He walks around, whatever, right? He was a 2D platformer on Genesis and was made by the Sonic people. And my problem with 2D Sonic is that he moves too fast, right? The levels, I mean, the levels are designed for him to go fast, but he moves too fast, and I feel like he's kind of clunky to control as well. Because as soon as you have to slow down to make a precise jump or something, he loses all his speed, and it feels like he falls like 100 miles an hour, right? And so Sonic feels heavy when he's not fast, which I mean is an interesting idea, right? And I think they probably did that on purpose, but it doesn't feel good to control. And it also feels like, you'll be playing Sonic, you'll hit an enemy, and then boom, you're like going 100 miles an hour and you just dead stop. And that kind of stuff gets to be a little annoying. So when I heard that Ristar was like the same level design but slower, I was like, oh, this is going to be great, right? Well, it is true that it's the same level design and slower, but man, Ristar moves like a snail. I mean, it's crazy. Ristar, like, and maybe he's actually not that slow. Maybe it's just because he's in Sonic levels that seem like they're supposed to be fast. Um, but like they've got to find some middle ground here because I know it's been 30 years. I don't have to worry about it anymore. But I guess what I'm saying is like Sonic was way too fast, but Ristar is way too slow. So I don't really know which is better. But yeah, I tried to play Ristar, really was not feeling it. I gave up after like one level. Also on Genesis Switch Online, I played a little bit of Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. I tried a little bit of Sonic Spinball. Didn't beat either of those. I tried Shinobi, I think it was. I don't know which one, but that's a beat 'em up. It's a lot like Ninja Gaiden, actually, in a way, but it's on Genesis instead of NES, so it looks way better and it's more in depth and stuff. And I got, I think, all the way to like the final boss in Shinobi, and I just couldn't beat it. So I played a lot of that, and then I played a little bit of Mega Man in that collection that I can't remember the name of. That's on Genesis. Um, so I played a little bit on Genesis, but I definitely could do more. So maybe I'll be checking that out a little bit too. But yeah, I've got to test some games. I've got to file some games in my collection, all that fun stuff, all that fun jazz. My voice is like gone. Like I really was like, okay, I'm feeling pretty good, right? I'm recovering from this illness, and like, man, it's hit me like a bullet train. Uh, like this is rough. So I guess I'm still sick, but I don't know. Maybe I'll be sick for the rest of my life. Who knows? That would suck, right? Wouldn't that suck? But anyway, I'm on an antibiotic, so hopefully that'll like fix it. But we'll see. So I think I'm probably gonna end the episode here because at this point I'm yapping about unrelated things. Well, I guess I should mention real quick. The Mario Kart World Direct is happening tomorrow, right? So that's very exciting. I'm going to. Oh, should I promise this? I don't know, because maybe something will come up. I think I'm going to live stream my reaction to the Mario Kart World Direct. So you're probably all watching this on YouTube. So go on YouTube, and if you're not on YouTube, if you're on Spotify, my YouTube is like in the description and stuff. You can go watch me on YouTube, and you can subscribe because I want subscribers. But yeah, I'll be streaming that. I think it's at probably 9 or whatever. whatever the normal time. I'll live stream that. I'll probably start like half an hour early, talk for a little bit, and then watch it, and then talk for a little bit afterwards. I'm excited to react to a Nintendo thing because usually I don't get to because I'm in school, but I'm on school break, so I'll get to this time. So I'll be live streaming that probably. And if it's super eventful, like if it's super exciting, there's a lot going on in the presentation, then I'll probably do a bonus podcast episode that's like a half an hour or something. But if it's not very eventful, then I'll just wait and talk about it next week. So it'll just depend on how eventful the episode, the Nintendo Direct is. If it's really big, I'll talk about it in a bonus. If it's not really big, I'll just wait till next week. So that's happening tomorrow. And also, the Switch 2, that comes out, is it 51 days? 51 days? Right, it's June 5th? 50 days, sorry, I was wrong. 50 days. Man, 50 days till Switch 2. That's that's a big milestone. We're 50 days out till Switch 2. That's exciting. So, wow, okay. 50 days. Man, that's crazy. How many podcast episodes is that? Like 7. About 7, yeah. Wow. All right. Well, anyways, I will see you all next week at same time roughly, unless something happens. Or I might actually. Well, I'll see you tomorrow if you show up to the live stream, and I might see you tomorrow if the direct is cool enough to make another episode on it. But yes, I have a lot of stuff to do, and I have to recover my voice apparently. And oh, you know what? I didn't plug one thing. Well, join my Discord, all that stuff. It's in the description. I forgot. I just remembered. Never plugged the email today at the start of the show. I usually do. I was totally like talking about Persona and I got distracted. You can email the show at notjustnintendo@gmail.com. That is NOTJUSTNINTENDO, all one word, at gmail.com. Or you can comment on YouTube. I haven't got any comments on YouTube. Or you can comment on Spotify as well if you're watching over there. I don't think there's a whole lot of people watching over there. If there was anything between the last two shows, I didn't see the comments on Spotify because it won't let me load Spotify. Spotify is having some weird. I think they're doing maintenance or something. It won't let me load it. Oh, actually, it loaded now. Of course it did. It wouldn't load before I did the episode. So let me just double check that there weren't any comments on Spotify. No, it doesn't look like it. Okay, so you can comment on Spotify as well. You can comment on YouTube. You can comment. Or you can email. So do all that stuff. Join the Discord below. I'm not going to plug my Blue Sky anymore. I'm probably not going to ever use that again. I don't know. Maybe I will. Who knows? If I do start using it again, I'll plug it. All that stuff. I will see you all either tomorrow or next week. See you then. 50 days till Switch 2. Goodbye.